Sanitation is of utmost importance. Keeping things cold, keeping raw meats below all other foods in your walk-in is really important. I know you understand the rules about sanitation, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. We have a lot to cover today. So I want to keep things moving along, but just remember sanitation is really important. And whenever you're doing anything like this that we're talking about today with ground meats, keeping things cold is really important. Okay, so through the whole process, even chilling down your ingredients in advance, like if you cut up vegetables and things to go into your meat stuffings or fillings or meatloaf or sausage that we're going to be exploring today, you're going to want to keep everything really cold because it helps with sanitation, of course, but also it helps with emulsification. And emulsification is something that happens when two unlike items are held together in suspension. So like, for instance, vinaigrette, like oil and vinegar, okay, is an example. And there's emulsifying actions that happen by agitation in this case. And in some emulsifiers, we're using salt as an emulsifier. Salt is a super important ingredient, and we'll talk more about salt as we continue to go through this, especially as it comes to scratch cooking. And I realize that salt is a delicate topic in school food service because we are constantly told to reduce salt. And if we're doing a heat and serve model, there's no reason to bring out the salt shaker because all the salt's already been loaded into those items that we're putting on sheet pans and heating up in the oven. But when you're using whole foods, salt is absolutely critical to making foods taste good. And if you want to be able to compete with the manufactured foods that you're serving on your service line when you're doing scratch cooking, you're going to really want to make sure it tastes good. Okay, you got to make sure it competes. So I know, set aside your preconceived notions about salt and let's talk about salt. Salt's use in judicious and careful ways. Okay. All right, I'm going to jump in right away. Cheryl Ann, let's show them this, what we got down here on the counter. What I've got down here, let's come just a little closer so you can get a really good close view of this first tray right here. This first tray is meatloaf, meatballs, meat stuffing, force meat. All of these are words for the same product, okay? This is just a meatloaf. It's just, I just shaped it, okay? The cool thing about meats like this is they can be shaped. They can be pushed into molds. They can be shaped and formed like this because they hold their shape. They can be made into patties. They can do all kinds of things. We can make crumbly meats. We can do all kinds of fun things. We can stuff meat inside of other things, inside of vegetables like bell peppers. We could stuff bell peppers with this force meat. All kinds of fun things we can do with meatloaf. So the meatloaf's going in the oven, okay? This next one, in a hot oven, okay, we're talking about 400 to 425. And when you're doing, if you're doing this in school, you're gonna want, if you're gonna put one pan into the oven, 400 degrees is probably good. But when you start to stuff the oven full of cold food, you're gonna want to turn the oven up. And you want to also really manage your oven well. Get in and out quickly, okay? It's really important when you're working with ovens to get in and out quickly. Have your ladder rack or your sheet pan rack close to the oven so that you can get in and out quickly and get the door shut quickly. All the heat dumps out of the oven and then has to be recovered. And then we're stuffing it full of cold food, and so we end up losing our searing action. We're looking for high heat searing action. We're turning the oven past 350, okay? 400 to 425 is the ideal temperature for this roasting process that we're going to do. This here is sausage. This is pork sausage. If your school can't do sausage, it doesn't matter what kind of ground meat you use. Any kind of ground meat will be great. This is pork, and because pork makes delicious sausage, I'm sure you've had pork sausage before. And can you imagine making your own homemade, fresh pork sausage in your school? You're going to blow minds. I'm serious. It's so good. Okay, this is going in the oven. Oh, patties, crumbles, and slabs, okay? I like to do, I'm showing you 3 different ways of doing this. If I had a big pan, we're gonna show you this other, the crumbly method with ground beef here in just a moment. Really simple crumble method, but this is sausage. This is where we mix all the ingredients in to the meat and use agitation to create sticky meat. It's really what it is. The salt acts in a chemical way with the protein in the beef and the meats and causes a real sticky emulsification to occur. Okay, so this is going in the oven too, and we're going to be looking back at this in just a few minutes when it comes out. Okay, so I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes. Alexa, set a timer for 10 minutes. It's pretty fancy. Okay, so what we have here is we have some ground beef and some seasoning, some taco meat. There's like 3 levels to this, okay? I'm just kind of thinking that this in 3 levels. Like the very first, most basic entry-level way of doing this is to smush out some, I'm calling it, I'm trying to keep it like some alliteration here. So just to make it interesting and memorable, okay? So the first thing we're gonna do is smush. We're gonna take our meat and we're gonna put it out onto a sheet pan, and we're gonna smush the meat out onto the sheet pan. When you're doing this on a big, this is 2 pounds of meat. When you're doing this in your school kitchens, you can plan on about 8 pounds or so of meat per sheet pan, okay? And the idea is to get the meat crumbled a little bit, so that we can have, so that there's access to the seasoning. You see the seasoning mix that I made up here? We want to have the meat be accessed by the seasoning. So we're smushing it out and we want it to be fairly even, okay? And it's nothing fancy, right? And then we're just going to take this and we're going to sprinkle this on. And I have recipes for all of these things that I've sent to Abby, and she will be forwarding those via email or some other form for you to have these things available to you, okay? So then once I do that, I'm just gonna smush it in just a little bit more. You don't even have to really. I just think it's a good idea. I really want the meat to be evenly seasoned so that the experience is the same for each kid. You know, they get the tasty piece of meat and they all have the seasoning on it that we want. Okay, so there's what it looks like, and that's going in the oven. Okay, so what I'm gonna show you next is how do we mix up this stuff? I don't want you to feel like I'm just gonna be putting stuff in the oven and we're gonna be done. And we're gonna show you how to mix this stuff up, okay? So here's how it works. I'm gonna move some stuff over here in just a second. Okay, take a look at these, Cheryl Ann, while I'm getting this ready. The first one, this one here, is the sausage, okay? The sausage has sugar and salt, black pepper, fennel seed. This is an Italian sausage. Some Italian herbs like Italian seasoning, thyme, oregano, basil, fresh garlic, and some sugar, okay? All of that in the ground meat, okay? And then I've got some vinegar that's gonna go in there. And I've got a little bit of water, ice water. And the ice water is a very important step in this process. Remember, I mentioned before that we want to keep things cold. It's really important to keep things cold. Okay. So what I've got here now is, let's go ahead and we'll do the sausage first. I've got a mixer here. So when you're doing this at school, if you don't have a mixer, sausage is a little bit more difficult. But you can always fall back on that method of doing the ground beef, okay? It's very simple. But making sausage requires some agitation. And unless you're making a small, if I was doing this small batch, this is 2 pounds of meat, I could technically do it by hand. It's just gonna take a little bit more effort, right? But if I had 50 pounds of meat that I wanted to process, I'm gonna need a mixer, okay? So, and that is using the paddle, not the whip. Don't use the whip, you'll be very frustrated.
One moment, I turned up the volume. You might need to speak up a little bit more, but can you ask in just a minute if that's better?
Sure.
After you've spoken for another minute or so.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So mixer, paddle, not whip. Okay. Don't use the dough hook. Don't use the whip. Use the paddle. Okay. Can everybody hear me okay?
That
I didn't even check.
Great on our end, Kent. Yeah, really good.
Okay, excellent. Okay, good. All right. So like I was saying, the mixer is super important. Okay. So if you don't have a mixer, you're gonna want to, put it on your wish list. There's equipment that you need to work with local foods. All right, here we go. So I'm just gonna take these ingredients, I'm gonna put them in my bowl. Okay, and I've got my ice water here. I'm gonna measure out my ice water. I need a half a cup. And I just put some ice in water together. I don't need the ice cube in there, but I'll fish that out. Fishing that out now. All right, here we go. Ice water and chilled wine vinegar. There's the ice cube. Okay, So I've got my chilled wine vinegar and my ice water here. Those ingredients we're gonna wanna add while the mixer is working, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and turn the mixer on, just kind of slow to start and get things moving a little bit. And you can look down in there if you can, Charlene. You can see what's going on. And I'm just gonna do a slow speed just for maybe 30 seconds or so, just to get things starting to come together. And then I'm gonna go ahead and turn it up. On your big mixer, at school, you might want to, you're probably looking at speed 2. Okay, so I'm gonna add my water now. Just a little dribble at a time. I'm just dribbling it in because I'm making an emulsion, okay? I'm taking things that don't normally mix together and mixing them together so they stay in suspension with one another. So the meat and the water are generally ingredients that wouldn't stay together like vinaigrette, right? Like olive oil and vinegar. There we go. So we're just adding this water gently and gradually until it's all incorporated. I'm gonna do the same thing with the cold vinegar, okay? This is white wine vinegar, red wine vinegar, I'm sorry. It comes in gallon jugs for school or for food service work, and you don't have to worry about having any alcohol in it or anything like that. It's just vinegar, but it's made from red wine. Okay? Use other vinegars too if you didn't have that vinegar in stock, but I would recommend you try procuring some of these ingredients and explore some things that you don't normally do. Okay? So I'm just mixing this up, mixing it up real good, and then. And the agitation is really important. So I'm going to let it run for about a good, I want to have it run for a good couple of minutes to get everything mixed together. All right, because that's what's going to cause that stickiness and that characteristic bite that sausage has. You know how sausage has ground meat is one thing, but sausage has a different bite to it. And the reason for that bite is because of this relationship between the salt and the mixing. Okay. All right, there we go. Okay, I'm going to take a sheet pan now. And you can use paper on these. Makes cleanup a little easier. I'm also going to scrape down my paddle because I want ingredients to be completely mixed and mixed well completely. So just to make sure that everything gets mixed really well. Okay. And then I'm just going to put this out onto my sheet pan. And then kind of come in and close on that. And that's what it looks like. It looks like the bulk sausage you buy at the grocery store, right? I mean, it's just simple bulk sausage. Seriously, you got to do this. It's so good. You're going to be inspired once you see how this comes together. Okay. So that's what we saw go into the oven. All I did was shape it up into slabs. Cool thing about slabs, we're going to talk more about this when it comes out, but you can slice it, you can dice it, you can do all kinds of fun things with slabs of meat and with the slabs of sausage and make like gyros, or you can dice it, or you can make strips for like wrap sandwiches, or you can make crumbles like for taco meat, or for Italian sausage for like spaghetti sauce. Just so many things, okay? So many things. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside. And we're going to move to the next one here. I've got my ingredients for the meatloaf. Meatloaf has a different binder. The salt is considered the binder in sausage, okay? And then meatloaf, or meat filling like this, or meatballs, any kind of, it's called a force meat in French. And the French call it a force meat. That's because they use it for making terrines and galantines. This is a very basic culinary technique of making a filling of meat, okay? Any kind of meat, ground, and then all of these herbs and spices and flavors. We've got parsley, we have fresh garlic, we have onions, we have fennel and Italian seasonings, we have ketchup and some cumin, some paprika, and some breadcrumbs here. And you can use any kind of breadcrumbs. You could use breadcrumbs that you make yourself. You could use panko crumbs, which these are. And you could also, oh, my timer's going off. Hey, thanks, Alexa. Okay, let's see what we got.
Alexa, please stop the timer.
Stop on computer.
Okay, so here's what we have so far. This is going to take longer, but these little patties are done. Okay? And I can set those on top of each other like so, and poke them with my thermometer to verify that. But for, you know how to do that stuff at school. But I just wanted to show you these. Look at those. They are so juicy and delicious. I'm going to put them on the sheet pan, and then we're going to move on to, I'm going to put this back in the oven. But those are gorgeous sausage patties, homemade, scratch made, local beef sausage patties, or local pork sausage patties, okay? In your case. All right, this is going back in the oven, okay? And then I've got, that was the meatloaf. I'm sorry, I said sausage. What I meant to say was the meatloaf, this is the sausage, and this sausage is crumbled and is done. And it's cooked, but what I'd like to have is a little more browning on this. Okay, so in your my fan is broken in my personal convection oven, and so the idea is that in your ovens at school, you want to crank the oven up so you can get some serious heat on this and sear it. Okay, so just ignore that. In this case, it's not as brown as I would like, but that's okay. You get the idea. So I want to show you how this crumble is going to work. So when you make this crumbled sausage, and this is going to be the same when we do the ground beef, is I'm just going to move this crumbly sausage bit into here, or I can even dump it in if I had like sheet pans full of this food. When we take the pan out of the taco meat, you'll see what I mean. But what we want to do is get it in here and just break it up a little bit, let it drain for a few minutes, and I can do this. This is a task I can do. I can do several days in advance before I need it. I can do this process on Monday for lunch I'm going to have on Thursday. Okay, or Friday. So you can see what we end up with. We end up with this beautiful crumbled, oh, this is the pork. That's the meatloaf. So this is the sausage. That looks great. Okay, give you a little bit more close-up look at that. Excellent. Okay. And then we are going to, just take a peek at the ground meat. Good. I'm gonna give that 10 more minutes. Alexa, give me 10 minutes on the timer, please. Okay, so I'm gonna put the sausage patty. Okay, I'm gonna put the sausage patty in. The sausage slab back in. And I'm gonna set these patties right here, and that's the sausage patties, okay? Which can be made into little sandwiches, which I'll just demonstrate quickly in a few minutes, okay? All right, so this sausage is going back in the oven. I'm gonna drain a little bit of this juice off just so that I get less steam and more searing heat in the oven, okay? I'm gonna crank my oven just a little bit more. All right. Okay, so let's make some meatloaf. So you saw all the ingredients for the, I'm sorry, what? Okay. I'm being signaled to do something, but I cannot. Oh. All right, put my gloves on. All right, here we go. So we've got all those ingredients. You're gonna have these recipes. So easy to put this stuff together. It's really just really simple ingredients and simple recipe. I'm gonna move this into the bowl. All of these ingredients. Ooh, I'm gonna flip some on the table and the floor first though, because I am the messiest cook on the planet. All right, here we go. I'm gonna put that, put my paddle back on here. All right. I'm gonna go slow for the first 30 seconds or so. The thing about this compared to the sausage, the meatloaf instead of the sausage is we don't want to mix the heck out of it in this particular case. We want to mix it just the bare minimum amount, because the mixing, like I was telling you in the sausage example, the salt and the meat and the agitation is important for developing the thick stickiness of the meat. In this, we want it to maintain tenderness. So what we want to do is just mix it enough to get everything well incorporated, okay? And not over mix it. So I got it stirring slowly. I'm gonna crank it up just for a few more seconds, and then I'm gonna scrape it down. When I say scrape it down, I really mean just getting the meat off of anything that might be sticking to the paddle. I'm gonna spin it up for another 15 or 20 seconds and it's gonna be all set to go. Okay, and then just to show you quickly how this can be shaped up. Let me find another sheet pan. All my sheet pans are dirty. Okay. So the way this can be shaped up is however you want. You can make patties. You can make this is like you can use your scale. Get out your scale and make 2 ounce little balls. You can make meatballs. You can use a scoop and make meatballs out of this and just put them onto the sheet pan like so as a meatball. You can pat out the patties, spin them up in your hand like so, flatten them out and make little patties. And then you can also make a big loaf. You can do something like this where you take the meat and shape it into a loaf or a shape of some sort. You could put it into a mold if you wanted to. You saw this go into the ovens a little bit ago, okay? So that's what it looks like. You could do this in patties, meatballs, loaves. You could even push this out like we did with the taco meat and do crumbles and serve it like on top of mac and cheese or with some other pasta dish and just have this, sprinkle the meat on top instead of mixing it into the sauce. That makes it a lot easier to track your meat alternates also. So because you're going to be putting it on separately instead of mixing into the sauce, which makes it more complicated to do those calculations. But we can talk about that another time. It's important though. It's important to make sure we're getting our crediting correctly done. Okay, so there we go. There is the mixing of the meat. So the next thing we're gonna do is I'm just gonna wipe down real quick and get this cleaned up a little bit, and I'm gonna show you how we can use these products when they come out of the oven, how we can slice them and process them or make them into center of the plate items, okay?
And Kent, while you're doing that, I just wanted to direct your attention, everyone. I've just shared 2 links. The first link is a fantastic resource that was put together by the WSDA. The State Department of Ag actually sponsored this session. We're so grateful for them to allow us to hear from Chef Kent today. And so it talks about cooking with local beef, cooking with raw meats in schools, and it's a fantastic resource. The second link I've shared with you will take you to the 3 recipes that Chef Kent has shared with us today. So before you leave the session, click on the links, save them, and make sure that you have access to these moving forward.
Okay, thank you, Abby. Okay. I've just got a couple of, you guys, how to make breakfast sandwiches, you know how to do all those things. Very simple stuff, right? I just wanted to show you so you can see it all the way through the end. Let's take a look at our ground beef, our ground meat. Here is the meat as it comes out of the oven. Doesn't look too exciting, but one of the benefits of doing this particular approach is even if you have a tilt skillet, I like this approach even better because what ends up happening when you cook meat in a skillet or a tilt skillet or any way, that it's really hard to get enough heat to have the caramelization happen. Roasting is a dry heat cooking method that puts caramel color on this meat and makes it tasty, way more tasty than just steamed meat, which is basically what you get when unless you have a really high heat temperature, high temperature skillet that can keep the temperature up high throughout the whole cooking process, you end up with just really steamed meat. So this gives you roasty, toasty flavors that are really nice to have in your taco meat, okay? Or your beef crumbles or whatever you're doing. So what you're gonna do then is when you get this done in your kitchens, is you're gonna just put this meat into the sheet pan or a strainer or a colander, allow it to drain.
And then you just bust it up a little bit with your with a bench scraper or a spatula like I'm using. You know, we don't want it to be really small. We want it to have a little bit of texture and a little bit of, you know, visual. Looks nice visually when it's a little bit chunkier than little pellets, you know, like we're used to using the little beef crumble pellets that that don't really have a very beautiful appeal, you know, visually. Okay, so let me put some of this out onto a plate for you. See how it's drained and it takes care of all that stuff. Up a little bit with my. You can also, if you're doing large batches, you can move this meat into your mixer, like the mixer that we use today, except the big floor mixer, and use the paddle and just put the cooked meat in there and run the paddle on low speed, and it will bust up the chunks into smaller pieces. Okay, so that's just a tip for doing large volumes. When you're doing large volumes of cooking, like everyone is, most of y'all are doing out there in your schools. Okay, so here is what our beef crumbles look like. Nice and easy, very, very easy to do. The other thing that's a benefit of doing this in the oven instead of the tilt skillet is I can just put it in the oven and forget about it. I put it in there, set a timer for 15 or 20 minutes, come back and check on it. I have to keep poking at it with a spoon or, you know, in the skillet, trying to move it around. I don't have to babysit it. I can just set it and forget it and come back and grab it later. So here's what we got. Check it out. All of these lovely products that we've just made: sausage crumbles and patties, meatloaf patties, little flavored meat patties that are from meatloaf, like meatballs, that whole concept, and then our beef crumbles in the oven method. Okay. All right. So let's see what's going on in the oven here with our other stuff, our meatloaf and our. So I've got this slab of sausage here. I'm going to show you how we're going to go about how you can use this product. And you can see how it's just so juicy and delicious. There's nothing dry about the sausage. It's really, really nice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set it here and give it just a couple minutes to rest. A really important technique when you're doing any roasting, oven roasting. Alexa, stop the timer. I should have said please. I'm sorry. Thank you, Alexa. Okay. I forgot what I was going to say. So, a rest period. You want to allow a rest period. Whenever you roast any kind of meats, whether it be a roast, a solid muscle piece of roast, prime rib, or a steak, or anything like that, you're going to want to let it rest for a few minutes. Because what happens is that the meat juices are forced to the center of the meat as it's cooking. And that juice recirculates back out to the whole piece of meat, the whole, whatever kind of meat it is. In this case, just back into our sausage. And then, because if I cut the meat right out of the oven, it's going to spill all of its juices out because it's all in the center. So everything's forced to the middle. So we want to let it rest for a few minutes. So while it's resting, is there going to be any way of doing a question and answer during this? Would there be a question and answer time? There might be questions out there that I'd love to answer, but I don't know how to manage that from here.
Absolutely. If people have questions, if you could put them in the chat, we can come around to that at the end.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at how we can use the patties and this. And this is, I'm not showing you anything fancy here. Okay. Just going to be your standard everyday stuff, right? And I lost my gloves. Okay. So just pretend I have gloves on. Okay. We're not serving anybody, but I would be wearing gloves because this would be an opportunity to do that. Okay. So I have English muffins, little whole wheat English muffins, and I can just take, these are a little bit small, but I could build a sandwich out. Oh, that's what I was going to do, is on these little bagel sandwiches like this. Okay, really simple, like so. Or I can do a patty like so. These are a little bit small, but you get the point. And put some cheese on here. And I can make these up ahead of time. and I can freeze them. I can make up the sandwiches and wrap them in the little foil wrappers that we use so much in schools, the little foil paper wrappers, and I can put them in on sheet pans and freeze them. And then I can pull them out as I need them, or I can, however, but this is a really nice way of getting ahead of things. Whenever you're doing scratch cooking, you're going to have to take things a little bit differently than on a heat and serve model. You're going to need to do a little bit more planning ahead and things like that. So just an important reminder.
Can you describe this? So this is a bagel sandwich. Is that with the sausage and cheddar?
This is sausage and cheddar. Yep.
Mhm.
Sausage and cheddar.
And that is
And this is the meatloaf. This is the meatloaf
on an English
patty
muffin.
on English muffin, which we can also put some cheese on if we want to. This is white
Mhm.
cheddar, and just make a simple sandwich. We could include eggs if we wanted to do eggs. We could use commodity egg patties in the sausage if we wanted to.
Mhm.
All the crediting information is on the recipe. Okay, so you can use that for your planning purposes to make sure you're getting the right amount of meat alternate. And so that's just a really quick and easy how to make some sandwiches. You guys probably already know that stuff. Then let's take a look at our meatloaf now. Should be about ready. And that is also going to need a little bit of time to rest. Okay. Take an internal temperature here. It may or may not be done. I'm not sure yet. We're looking for 155 on this on ground beef products is our finished temperature. Okay, I'm at 130. Okay, so I'm gonna go a little bit more. And in the meantime, let's cut the sausage up and talk about our uses for that. So on the sausage, I can make these up and put them in the refrigerator and have them made several days in advance, or I can make slabs and put them in the freezer and just pull them out as I need them. This one of the really nice things about this is I can make it so I can plan ahead for this use of these products. Okay, so like on one day I could make the sausage and pack it up and cook it, or I could even make the sausage and leave it in the walk-in, and the next day come in, do the mixing. The next day come in and do the shaping, and then put it in the oven, let it all cool in the walk-in, and then wrap these up in plastic wrap and put them in the freezer. Okay, so, and use them however I need to. But one cool way is just to slice it. The stuff slices really nicely, especially when it's cold. I mean, this is slicing up very nicely when it's hot right now. But when it's cold and it's had time to set, you won't have this crumbling that's happening right here. But then you end up with these beautiful slices, which, some exciting things we can do is make gyro, 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 that the Greek sandwich that comes in a piece of pita bread. Some slices of this sausage and some tzatziki sauce and some cucumber and fresh garden tomatoes, and maybe some lettuce and feta cheese. Oh man, one of the best sandwiches ever, right? Messy, runs down your elbow. Okay, but this is really good stuff. So really fun to be able to use this stuff in slices like this. You could lay this on top of a salad. You could use this in a center of the plate application. Like I could put like a pile of mashed potatoes, and I could have like 3 slices of sausage there alongside my mashed potatoes. Just so many things you can do with it. Lots of fun stuff. Okay, and people are going to be blown away when they eat this because they're going to be like, "Wow, this is so delicious." As a matter of fact, I haven't tasted it yet, so I'm going to try that right now. Oh yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Very good. Okay. How about questions while we're waiting for that piece of beef to finish up?
All right, so Maggie asked, what temperature and how long should I bake ground pork so that it wouldn't become too dry?
425, 400 to 425, depends on how you stuff your oven. If you're doing a lot, let's say you have 4 racks in your standard convection oven at school, 4 or 5 racks. If you stuff that oven full of 8 pounds per sheet pan, 8 times, what is that? 8 times 5 is what? 45 pounds of meat. If I've stuffed 45 pounds of meat into a hot preheated oven, it's going to be cold right away. So I would, first of all, crank up the heat a little bit more, go to 450. Don't even be scared about the heat. Okay, crank it up to 500 if you need to. There's no reason to be scared. Just set the timer for a small amount of time to verify, to check it. set it for 10 minutes. Okay, put the meat in the oven, set it for 10 minutes, or set it for 10 minutes and come back and check it. And then probably in 20 minutes, the meat will be done. Okay, but you still need to, you know, poke it with a thermometer and make sure. Okay, but does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. And it won't dry out quickly. Okay, it's going to stay really moist. It's going to take a lot to dry it out. Okay, this is a really easy, slick way of doing this. How about other questions? I can hear the sizzling of the meatloaf right now. Does this seem like something you could do in your kitchens? I'm going to ask you a question. Does it feel like, when I teach stuff, I go around the country and I teach people these skills all the time, school food service people all the time. And I'm always following up to find out if this was a skill they could apply right away. It's so important to me that you are able to do this tomorrow. You know, I don't want to come in and do something that's so chef wild, weird, and out there that the average person can't get at it. This is super. I like to try to keep it super simple because it's a new skill. You're learning a new skill. It's really important.
And we have many people in the chat typing in, yes, they think that they can do this. And one thing I love about working with you in particular, Kent, is that you've been in school food 17 years, right? In Wenatchee School District. So not only are you a chef and have those skills, but you know that these are things that we can do in school. And we have schools already implementing some of these things from earlier this year when we got to speak with you, and they're working out excellently. And I was able to speak to about half of you in the last presentation about what the power of smell and taste can do in our programs, and cooking these sausages and crumbles from scratch in the school. Can you imagine the smell of the cafeteria and in the hallway? This will bring students into our programs.
It's so funny that you mentioned that, Abby, because every school I go, I do a lot of live trainings during school sessions. Like instead of a lab setting training where like you guys have the day off and I come in and we work in the kitchen or we work in a room and we do some knife skills or we do some vegetable roasting or something like that in a laboratory setting. This is a different approach where I come in and we make a full scratch menu and serve it to kids today. I come in at 5:30 with the team. We make a great meal. I had a point to make, and now I don't remember what it was, but
maybe about the smell.
Oh, the smells. Oh, every single time someone comes in from down the hall and says, what's going on in here today? It smells amazing. And I'm like, I just love that. This is one of the side benefits. You know, another really important side benefit of doing this is pride. Sometimes the only pride we can get from our work is that we're so proud to be able to serve kids. And serving kids is important work, and I don't want to diminish that. But sometimes it isn't very pride-inducing to heat up pre-made foods on sheet pans and serve them. That doesn't really generate a lot of prideful feelings when someone tastes it. Go, oh, I love this chicken nugget. You know, I didn't have anything to do with it. All I did was heat it. But when you make homemade sausage, you're going to blow people's minds, and people are going to be like, your students are going to be like, wow, I cannot believe that our school food service staff is making fresh sausage. And you're going to get the best feeling from that, and that will be pride. So really important. Okay, let's go to the oven before I start getting misty. Okay. Oh, look at that. It's looking real good now. Take a look at that a little closer. See the browning that's going on? We have a beautiful caramelization, a beautiful crust coming on. And now what's going to happen is we need to let this rest for a few minutes. And there's also a thing called carryover cooking time. We have hit the temperature mark. And what's going to happen is in the 5 minutes that this sits here, it's going to rise in temperature about 5 to 7 degrees by just sitting here. Okay, it's called carryover cooking time. So it's not done cooking. Anything above 140 degrees is continuing to cook because that's about the temperature when cooking starts. So we're looking really good here. We're going to let it rest for a few more minutes and take a couple more questions while we're waiting for the resting.
One district chimed up and said, we'd love to do more scratch. They're a very big district. Do you have any tips when you're doing this on a very, very large scale for how it can be done?
Okay. Well, especially as your situation grows in volume and numbers of students you have to serve, equipment becomes way more important than before. And so like, you know, you just can't do it without the appropriate equipment. You're not going to make a lunch for 5,000 or 50,000. Like I was hanging out with Chef Emmy from Seattle School District this week at a training, and we were asking around the room how many lunches you're serving. One lady said 70 and one lady said 50,000. That was Emma. And it's like, blows my mind. Set 50,000 meals a day. And in that scope of things, you're going to have some gear, and gear is going to be super important. You know, really that's really the bottom line, is having the appropriate kind of gear to do it. I'm probably not answering your question in very, very well, but a way you can just get started with scratch cooking in schools is if you're not doing salad bars at every one of your schools, and that is a great place to start. All of the schools, elementaries, it doesn't matter. I've been doing this for 43 years, and getting paid to cook. And the 17 years I was at Wenatchee, the very first year I was there, the first week of school, we started adding salad bars to every school because I couldn't imagine not having a salad bar. This is 20 some odd years ago when salad bars were not all that prevalent in schools. And it was the best thing ever. We did, there was a district of about 8,000 students, and we had them at every single elementary school. We didn't let the kindergartners go through the salad bar because that was a lot of work, but first grade through fifth grade, they were all getting salad bar, self-service salad bar. This is my little soapbox. Try to stop using plastic packaging as much as you can. It looks really nice on the trays when you have all the little cups full of vegetables, but it is a waste of plastic, and it's not good for the planet. The kid's going to take those broccoli florets and dump them onto his tray and throw the little cup in the garbage, and it's going to be used for 1 hour to contain a couple of pieces of vegetables. So work on a plan to serve food in bulk and let kids learn how to serve themselves off the buffet. It's a really important skill. Just like learning math or learning to read, kids need to learn the skills to use a buffet. So there's my little soapbox.
Can I bring up a comment that's been made now a few times, is not enough time. And that's something that I know as we are building our new cycle menus at some of our schools this year, we're trying to really stack the week so that some of this can be done ahead. Can you talk a little bit about some of those strategies, Chef Kent?
Yeah. So whenever you're doing any type of scratch cooking, if you're starting to grow your scratch cooking program, you're going to transition looking at your production cycle from one day. Like during this time when if you're doing primarily sorry, I'm just looking for a towel. If you're primarily doing heat and serve, you can come in pretty much come in any day of the week, look at the menu and pull the stuff from the freezer, open the cans, get the pre-chopped vegetables from the walk-in, put it all together, serve the kids, and clean up the mess and go home and not think about it till tomorrow when you come in and look at the menu and do the same thing over again. Okay, there's very little advanced preparations. I'm not trying to minimize the work that you do. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying it requires less planning. Okay, when you start to do scratch cooking, you're going to have to start looking at your production cycle in 1 week pieces. So an entire 5 days. Look at your entire 5 days of work, breakfast and lunch and anything, snacks, whatever else you're doing, supper. Put those into a table, like a big whiteboard, a 4x6 whiteboard in your kitchen. Make a grid that's got 5 days across and how many days, how many boxes down. One box would be for I have examples of this I can share with you when I get a minute. I'll put it up. It's just called the whiteboard concept. I think the word is actually Abby's word, but it's a really great concept for visualizing and communicating the workload that you need to use for your team when you're doing scratch cooking. So let's say for instance on Tuesday and Thursday, I have smoothies for breakfast. And on Tuesday I have blueberry smoothies, and on Thursday I have banana strawberry smoothies. When I come in on Monday, my whiteboard is going to say the menu, and I'm going to see today, and today says make the granola and the smoothies for Tuesday and Thursday. So I'm going to make the smoothie base. I'm going to do some prep, some advanced prep. On Monday, I'm going to make the smoothie base. I'm going to combine the yogurt and the orange juice and the honey and the vanilla in a bucket. I'm going to mix it together and put it away because that's going to be my base for my smoothie. I'm going to make sure I have frozen berries. I'm going to peel bananas and put them in the freezer. I'm going to do whatever it takes to have frozen fruit, what all the flavors I'm going to do. And if I'm serving granola, homemade granola with it, I need to make the granola sometime this week. And I can do that several days, weeks, actually. I can do that a couple weeks. I can make granola once every couple of weeks if I'm not going through it as quickly. You know, we want to move through this stuff, but I'm just telling you, you want to learn the shelf life of these certain products, and then you can start plugging them into the week so that you don't do everything all on that day. When we're used to doing that way, when we're doing that heat and serve model, we're used to coming in and doing everything in the day of service. But we need to start looking at our production over the course of a week. Okay, so that's a really, really important point. I'll try to put up some information about that, the little document that shows that on paper. But it works really great on a whiteboard. The other cool thing about that is when your staff walks in, they just look at the whiteboard and go, oh, I got to make smoothie base and granola today for Wednesday or Thursday, and I've got to do this and that. So it communicates the workload, the prep work to your team. I'm not saying this is easy. I'm not saying this transition to scratch cooking is easy. I don't want to make it sound like it's easy or minimize the effort you will have to take to get here. It will take some more effort. It will take some energy, but it will also, you know, a lot of times people say, how can I, don't have time to do what I'm doing today? How can I even do more? Because you'll abandon certain things and you'll start to do other things. And start simple. Start simple. Start with vegetables. Start with raw vegetables and put out a beautiful salad bar. Then start with ranch dressing, perhaps. Everybody uses ranch dressing. So I've got a salad bar. Why don't I make some homemade scratch ranch dressing? I got a recipe for you if you need it. Let me know. So easy. Mix it in a bucket. Serve it. It's delicious. Kids love it. These are ways you can just start one step at a time. Okay?
Thank you. I know for our districts that are now doing the raw meat with their farm to school, they're doing all their beef crumbles at once and freezing part of them in advance. And then it becomes more like the heat and serve we're used to. So one big day of prep really prepares them to do that. We have two other questions that have come in. Do you want to answer those now, or do you want to? Okay. So one is the cost higher on scratch cooking?
It can be hard to start. It can be higher to start. I can't say across the board that yes, for sure, it's going to be more expensive. I can tell you that you're going to get used to it. And actually it will be more cost effective down the road as you get better at it, because part of doing scratch cooking is also engineering leftovers and utilizing leftovers in ways that you've not been accustomed to. You're gonna have to get used to doing that. When I say engineering leftovers, I mean, we generate leftovers all the time, right? If we cook off something, we plan for 500 and 457 come, we have a bunch of stuff left over, right? We always do. It's really hard to reuse frozen products that we've heated up in the oven. Like, you know, I got 12 pieces of pizza left, and I see school districts do it all the time, and it's not a very appealing product to have a piece of reheated pizza, but we still do it because we want to be good stewards of the food, and I get that. As you start to do more scratch cooking, you're going to find ways to engineer leftovers for another use. So for instance, like I'm going to, it's not really engineering leftovers, but it really is like if I get in 100 pounds of ground beef, and I mix it up in my mixer and I spread it on a sheet pans and sprinkle the stuff on it and do it in the roast in the oven and put it all in the walk-in. I've engineered leftovers. I've engineered a product that I can just pull out and heat up, warm up again. So just like if I had bought the beef crumbles from commodity system or from my food service vendor. So I hope is that answering your questions?
Yeah, thank you. And the last question we had is going back to the salad bar idea. And one thing that's really preventing people from doing salad bars is the speed through the line. Do you have any ideas or tips to help us encourage schools to use salad bars, or to either speed up the line or to find a strategy to work within serving salad bars to elementary students?
You know, training them training the kids is something that we would do when I was doing this in Wenatchee. We always spent the first 3 weeks of school trying to train those younger kids on how to use the salad bar. And yeah, it's going to take them a little bit of time to get through the salad bar. It's really true. But they'll get better at it. They really will get better at it. And they're going to start to, the first time they see the salad bar, they're going to like linger over it. And they're going to just like love the look, and it's going to be beautiful and all those colors and the rainbow of veggies, you know, it's beautiful stuff. And they're going to be overwhelmed by that. And they're going to want to touch everything and try everything, right? After a couple of weeks of doing that, they're going to go, I really just want the apples and the carrots and the cucumbers, because that's what I love. And those are always out there. And I'm going to try the salad they made, the new salad, the new salsa, whatever. But it will get better. It does get easier. You have to get your principals and your administration to trust you as you embark on this, and also enlist a little bit of help. There's always teachers out there that really want to see kids fed better. And I always just asked a teacher if they would help coach the kids through the salad bar, help them with sanitation, understanding, you know, how to use the thing. And it doesn't have to cost food service anything. This is a passion, a love that people have for feeding kids better. You'll find them in your buildings. Just ask somebody, hey, we're going to start salad bar because this is the Abby was talking about passion for this stuff in her talk. And you show your passion and people are going to get on board with you. So show them passion that you want to do salad bar. I want to just do salad bar. I want to put out 6, 8, 10 kinds of vegetables on a self-service bar. It doesn't have to be a salad bar like cottage cheese and meat and all of that stuff. Don't make it complicated. Put out salad greens and dressing every single day. Put out a bunch of fresh vegetables every day and just start getting in the groove. And it's going to be a little bumpy at first, but you just have to push past it. None of this stuff is going to be easy peasy just to get started, but just start and just start moving along. Okay, I want to show you this meatloaf. It's sitting here. It's beautiful. Looks great. I can slice it, and it slices up really nicely. We have this beautiful, beautiful meatloaf. It's tender, delicious, and homemade and scratch, made with love. And thank you so much for your attention today. I hope you got something out of it. And please email me with questions. I'm so happy to answer your questions.
Thank you so much, Chef Kent. I hope you get a chance at some point to go back and see the comments. People are so thrilled with this wonderful class and the joy that you bring in your cooking. So thank you so much. And we're so excited to have you. Again, a special thank you to the Washington State Department of Ag for sponsoring the session so that we could learn from you. And one thing with cost, we have these incredible farm to school opportunities where we're getting these ingredients for free. So I hope you're taking advantage of some of these incredible opportunities to get in these habits. And with salad bars with my schools, it's creating that habit. And like Chef said, it goes smoother after you've been doing it for just a little bit of time. It takes that initial effort. So thank you for all that you shared today. And just a reminder, we have final classes coming. Those will start in 5 minutes. You can go back to Mindy's original email. We'll be talking about commodity food usage, and we're also, or not usage, but the commodity program and some of your options within that program. And then we'll also be talking about National School Lunch Program, which we have not operated now for 3 years. So getting back to this program and how it goes. But again, thank you so much, Chef Kent, and thank you everyone for being here today.
Thank you, everybody.